Welcome back to Con TV. I'm your host, Con Jackson, and I'm so excited because just in a few moments in Studio B here at Multicast Media, we're going to be with Ron Clark, Disney's Teacher of the Year. He's got a lot of exciting things to share with us, including his best-selling book. Oh, stay tuned. But first, we've got to go back out to Vegas, where Courtney is sitting down with the legend, and who knows what he's brought to show us. Hey, Courtney, take it away with Jack Hanna.
Thanks, Con. I'm here with Jack Hanna, and of course, you wouldn't recognize him unless he had one of his furry friends here. But tell me a little bit about your new show, Jack Hanna Into the Wild, if you can while you're juggling there.
No. Jack Hanna's Into the Wild is a new show that Guy Nickerson and I are doing, Spectrum Productions. It takes you all over the world, just like Animal Adventures did, but this one's going to be totally different, and our family's going to be involved. A lot more reality involved in this story, in the shows. We'll be going into Rwanda talking about the mountain gorillas, our first 5 shows in an hour special. But more than that, we're talking about the people there in this show on that. So you're going to see a lot more in this new show, Into the Wild, about peoples and about cultures, as well as the animals, and how both depend upon each other.
Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back from our next break, but let's talk about your friend here who's trying to hide.
This
is a lemur, correct?
This is a lemur. Come here, buddy.
Come on.
A lemur is a very, very rare animal. They're from Madagascar.
Okay.
And they're prosimian. They're pre-monkey and pre-ape. This animal's been around for tens of thousands of years.
Oh, I said that they look like little gorilla hands.
Exactly. See the little hands there? And the lemur, I'm sorry to say, is really, every one of them is very, very endangered. They're going into, some of them going into extinction, as a matter of fact, as we speak right now.
Really?
There are many species of lemur, but this one here, they're hunting for their meat as well as for their coats. But the main thing is loss of the forest there, and they're a very, very bright and social animal, very, very social.
Very, very busy, I can see.
Yeah, he's always busy.
Of course, we'll be right back with some more furry creatures. Con, come back. You got to see this.
Question I got to know, Ron, is where did the lemur head? All of a sudden, he disappeared.
I don't know. No idea.
Ron, it's great to have you with us. New York Times best-selling book. Congratulations on all your well-deserved success. Take us back to Harlem.
I was just teaching in North Carolina. I'd been there for 5 years working with students there in a low-wealth area, and I really loved it. And I saw a TV show about schools in Harlem. It showed violence and drugs and guns and all different types of issues in schools that were going to close. And I just had a feeling. I said, I'm going to try and go up there and work in one of those schools and try and make a difference. And everyone said I was crazy, but I packed up my car, I drove all the way up to Harlem and found one of those schools. And when I walked in the door, there was a fight going on right there in the doorway between a 6th grade boy and a male assistant at the school. And I was trying to break up the fight, and the resource officer was coming around, and the boy was going, and he was just huffing and puffing. And they took him into the office and set him down, and they went to call his mom. And I sat down beside this kid, and he just kept going, I didn't know what to do, so finally I leaned over to him and I said, you know what? I said, I was breathing like that one time and I passed out. And the kid was like, for real? I was like, yeah. And so I started talking to the kid, and after about 5-10 minutes, he said, you know what, you're different. You talk to me with respect, like you really care about me. He said, if you were my teacher, I wouldn't get in so much trouble. And so I took it as a sign that's where I was supposed to be. And I talked to the principal, and I told her I wanted a job there. And she said, you want a job here? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she eventually gave me the class. She said it was the worst class she'd seen in 30 years in education, 37 kids in this class. None of them were on grade level in math and reading. They all had discipline problems, and I was scared. I was very scared. And,
I would be scared. But you went in there, Ron, and saw hope.
Right. Oh, yeah. Tons of potential in those kids. Every child has potential, and it's just a matter of getting in there and just finding a way to inspire those kids, getting them to see their own potential and making sure that they know that you see their potential as well. As teachers and as parents, we have to see more in kids than they ever see in themselves. We have got to set the tone and to lift them up. And I just went in there and I just believed in those kids, and I started with my rules and discipline and manners and teaching respect and just getting those kids excited. I learned how to do the Harlem Shake, and I started rapping my lessons in my classroom and just really making the classroom a fun, exciting place. I got those kids out. We went all over New York City. We did these huge projects. They were active in the community. Just getting these kids to love education, to love life. And a lot of these kids were discipline problems because they were bored. They didn't want to be there. And when you can get kids engaged and they're active constantly, and you get them to love what they're doing in the classroom, then the discipline problems, they kind of go away because they're so active and they're enjoying being in that classroom.
But let's talk about, you said you learned to rap, or at least try. You did the
double dutching. because that's big time. And in Harlem, you know, more than basketball, more than rap, more than dance, and if you can double dutch, that's big time for them, you know. So I said, I've got to learn. And so every day I would go out there and try and do it. And it was hard, and you know, it took me about 6 weeks before I could finally get it. But finally, once I got it, I can get in there and do it. The kids were like, "Oh, Mr. Clark, Mr. Clark," and they respected that. I could have had, you know, Yale degree, a Harvard degree, whatever on my wall. Those kids wouldn't have cared. But the fact that I learned to double dutch and I didn't give up, you know, that they respected.
Over time, how did you have the patience? Because it didn't happen just overnight.
Teachers, you know, it's difficult. It's the hardest job in the world, and some nights you're like, blah. But, you know, if you stick with it and you let those kids know you care, eventually you'll see a great result.
A positive road. You've influenced those kids. We even heard from Heather earlier about the teachers that she remembers. Even
when I won the Disney Teacher of the Year award, and it was amazing because as teachers we don't get recognized that much for things, and we don't get awards like that often, and to be recognized on a national level, it was incredible. And all my class from Harlem, they went with me to the award ceremony in Los Angeles, and so I think that was the best part. That when I got up on stage and I had the award, I mean, the award was nice, and Oprah was out there in the audience and everyone clapping, but then I looked at my kids and they were just jumping up and down and screaming and clapping, and that was the best part, seeing how happy they were.
Well, what also is powerful is we can't recreate multiple Ron Clarks, but you have to share this school that you are overseeing, brand new, hasn't opened yet, but share with our audience just about the mission of this new school and what you want to do with it.
Yeah, it's just like I said, travel is so important. Well, this is going to be a school that incorporates a great deal of travel. It's a 5th through 8th grade school, and what we'll do is we'll travel with the kids, and all of the curriculum will be integrated into travel. And by the time our students are in the 8th grade, they'll have visited every continent around the world.
Wow.
And also, my 55 essentials, my 55 rules will be incorporated so that we do a lot with manners, respect, discipline, teaching these kids skills for life, how to give that firm handshake, how to look someone in the eyes, and so forth, skills that these kids will need to be successful no matter where they go or what they do.
We've got our emails in. Are you ready for these questions? I mean, the emails have been jammed. Jam. Well, this is a great question. This is from Stacy right here in Atlanta. She's asking, I've got 2 kids, one that's a straight A student who's 9, and the 7-year-old is lagging behind. How do I motivate 2 children differently?
Well, it sounds like the first one's doing well on her own. For the second one, I would just be more involved. Just look and see what that child is doing in the classroom. You know, give that child a little bit of extra help at night with the homework. And if he's doing something on the Civil War, or if they're studying that in history, you know, buy a Civil War movie, or make sure that you're supplementing that curriculum in the home, and just make sure that you're giving that child an extra push. The first child, she's already on her own, so spend more time on the second child.
Wow, that's great advice. Allison from Cupertino out in California wants to know, I can't wait to read your Essential 55. Could you share just a few of the tips that are in the book? I think that's a good question.
It's basically 55 rules for life, but it's not only for kids, but it's for adults, it's for everyone. And it's things like how to give a compliment, how to respect the elderly, how to eat with proper etiquette. Just things like how to be a team player, teaching my students like how to clap for each other, how to lift each other up, how to be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and just how to live your life to the fullest. There's rules about honesty and rules that, you know, really relate to life. And a lot of parents, what they'll do is they'll read one rule a night and one story to their kids, and the kids love it because in the stories, I tell about how my kids got in trouble, my students, and you know how we corrected the situation and why it's important. And kids love hearing stories about other kids getting in trouble. But every story has a lesson, and the kids really walk away learning something about life and how to treat people and how to act differently. And when you can incorporate these 55 rules into a child, into a classroom, it's amazing the transformation that occurs.
Wow, that's a great book, Essential 55. It's out, a New York Times bestseller. We've got Steve from Birmingham. I love teaching my kids. You've taken them around the world. What's some advice you could give for a teacher that doesn't have access to taking kids on field trips that extensive?
Yeah, you don't have to go even outside of the city. Sometimes when I taught in North Carolina, we didn't have any money. We'd sell donuts, and we still couldn't get enough money to travel. So I would just take them to the bowling alley. But the key is making it an internal experience. So before I'd go to the bowling alley with my students, I would go myself. I would measure the lanes. I would take the pins and put the pins on worksheets dealing with fractions. I would go to the little cantina. I would get the price of the hot dog and the drinks and the soda, and I'd put them on worksheets. And so for weeks, these kids are doing worksheets, dealing dealing with, the area of the lane and so forth, the perimeter of the bowling alley. And so I would tell them, before you go on this trip, you've got to know this information. You have to know how to keep score in bowling if you want to go on the trip. And then when these kids would go, they were prepared. They internalized it because they knew all the information, how to keep score themselves.
Wow.
They go to the cantina. They had practiced buying these items on the worksheets. And so it's all about making sure that these kids internalize the experience. And if you're going to kick kids out of the classroom, they don't care where they're going. They're just excited to be going somewhere.
Field trip. That was the best day of class.
But make sure it's a learning experience.
That's a great one. Amber from Boston asks, I read your website. How excited are you not only to have a movie being made about you, but Matthew Perry playing the lead role?
Yeah, it's really cool. The movie comes out August 13th on TNT. It's a Johnson & Johnson Spotlight presentation, and the movie's already finished filming, and I got to go on the set. And it was really cool because I got to take some of my students from Harlem who are now 16 and 17 years old to the set, and they got to see these little 10-year-old kids playing them in the movie. And so it was really a surreal experience to be there and to watch how they recreated my classroom and the lessons and the experiences. It was really neat.
Well, Matthew Perry, you guys have a similar look. Was it fun working with him?
Yeah, it was fun. He's just like you see him on TV. He's a little zany. He's got a good personality, good sense of humor, so it was a good fit.
Awesome, inspiring story. Ron Clark,
Thank you.
We look forward to having you back. We'll give you some of the questions that were emailed in here. Thank you. We'll be back. We've got Jack Hanna, Heather, he said, she said. Who knows what's going to happen? We'll be right back. Thank you so much for watching. Are you tired of negative news? We are.
And that's why we're creating a movement.
By keeping it real.
With what you need to know.
It's more than what's happening.
It's bringing hope back to our lives.
So go to contv.com and join our movement.